I had just sat down with a cup of tea when Leo lifted his head from the rug ears, twitching. A low rumble rolled from his throat, not a growl of fear, but of warning. He rose to his feet and moved toward the front window, his body tense. I followed his gaze just as Jared's car turned into the driveway. Leo lunged toward the door, barking, loud, sharp, relentless. I reached for his collar, stunned. This was the dog who hadn't made a sound since I brought him home from the shelter. Quiet during thunderstorms, calm when the neighbors' kids yelled down the street. But now he barked like something terrible was on the other side of that door. The keys jingled outside. Jared opened the door with his usual dramatic flair, pushing it wide like he owned the place. "Whoa," he laughed. "Guess I'm not his favorite person, huh?" I gave a small smile, trying to hold Leo back, though he wasn't aggressive, just insistent. He stayed planted in front of me like a guard. Jared walked in with a bag slung over one shoulder, acting unfazed. Maybe it's the cologne. Dogs hate the good stuff. Leo didn't let up, not even after I led him into the kitchen and closed the door between us. Jared flopped onto the couch like nothing had happened. We chatted for a while about nothing in particular. His work, the weather, some vague plan to move into something bigger soon. I nodded along, distracted by the muffled rhythmic barks coming from the other room. When he finally left, Leo went quiet immediately. I opened the kitchen door and he walked out. Calmly gave one sniff to the air and curled up beside my chair, like he always did. I reached down to stroke his fur. "He's just adjusting," I whispered to myself, still settling in. But when Jared came back 3 days later, Leo barked before the car even stopped. I stopped by the pet store that afternoon to pick up more treats for Leo. He had taken a liking to the salmon kind, and I figured he deserved a reward after all the strange energy this week. As I waited at the counter, the owner, Carla, smiled and leaned over to scratch Leo's ears. "He's such a good boy," she said. "I've never seen him bark or growl at anyone." I hesitated. "He's been different lately. Barked non-stop the last 2 times my son visited." Carla looked at me, then at Leo, who sat politely at my side tail, sweeping the floor. "Really? That doesn't sound like him. He's one of the calmest dogs we've had through here." I nodded, unsure what I was hoping to hear. "You ever seen him act like that with anyone else?" "Not once," she said slowly. "But he came from a shelter in Monroe County. You might want to ask if they have more of his background on file. Back home I called the shelter." The woman on the phone sounded young but polite. She asked for Leo's intake ID, then went quiet for a moment. I could hear her scrolling through something. "He's originally from a training facility," she said. "Law enforcement. He was part of a narcotics detection program, but he got injured in a field exercise and was retired early." I blinked, gripping the phone a little tighter. "So, he was a police dog. In training, yes. Didn't make it to active duty. But he passed all his scent tests. It's in his notes." After the call, I stood in the kitchen with Leo lying at my feet. I looked down at him. He looked up at me, calm, alert, as if he was waiting for something I couldn't yet see. Later that night, Jared texted, "Coming by tomorrow. Around 4? Got something for you." Leo didn't sleep much. He paced the hallway between the front door and my bedroom, ears up, steps measured. And just before dawn, he lay down by the door like he was already expecting trouble. I ran into Reese Calloway by chance. He was sitting outside the diner, coffee in one hand, newspaper folded neatly on the table. We hadn't seen each other in years, but he stood the moment he recognized me. "Estelle Moran," he said, smiling, still walking, like someone who knows where she's going. We chatted for a while. It was easy with Reese. He used to patrol our old neighborhood when Jared was in middle school, always had time to stop and ask how I was holding up after Roger passed. I didn't plan to bring up Leo, but the words slipped out as we talked. The barking, the calmness with everyone else, the sudden alertness whenever Jared visited. And the call with the shelter. Reese didn't laugh or shrug it off. He listened, quiet and still. If that dog came out of narcotics training, he said he's reacting to something he was taught to recognize. They don't forget their work, not completely. I tried to keep my face neutral, but something sank in my stomach. I told him I didn't think Jared had anything to hide. He was just hard to pin down sometimes, always switching jobs, talking about a new business idea, always about to close a deal. Maybe it's nothing, I added quickly. Maybe Leo's just picking up tension. Reese nodded, once slow. It could be. But I know someone's still on the force. Smart young, good instincts. If you're open to it, I can have her stop by and observe. No paperwork, just a conversation. I said yes before I could second guess it. Later that week, Detective Jaime Hall came by. She was in plain clothes, barely older than Jared. She sat in my living room while Leo paced near the window. I told her everything down to the wrapper from the pet store and Jared's nervous laugh. She took notes, calm and unhurried. If something's off, she said, we'll start small. You don't have to do anything more than you're ready for. I nodded. Leo had moved to the hallway again, ears up. The next day, Jared came by. Leo didn't bark, he growled. Jared showed up just after 4, as promised. Leo was already barking before his tires hit the gravel, pacing from the door to the kitchen and back again like he was trying to hold the house together. I opened the door and tried to grip Leo's collar, but he jerked forward, snarling. Not wild, not out of control, just firm. Intentional. Jesus. Jared muttered as he stepped in, flinching slightly. Maybe he's racist. I stared at him. That's not funny? He laughed once hollow. Relax, I'm kidding. He dropped his keys on the hall table and walked toward the fridge without asking, like always. Leo kept barking from the laundry room where I'd finally had to shut him in. Jared stayed for 20 minutes. Said something about new clients maybe moving out west, asked if I still had that spare furniture in the garage. His tone was light, but his eyes kept shifting. I nodded where appropriate, smiled when he did. I waited for the moment I could breathe again. When the door finally closed behind him, I didn't stand right away. I just sat there in the quiet. Leo had gone still behind the door. I found the jacket draped over the arm of the couch, dark gray, newer than anything else he usually wore. I picked it up to hang by the door. That's when I felt something in the pocket. A small packet. Smooth. Sealed. I pulled it out slowly, clear plastic, vacuum tight. No label, no odor, no markings at all. It was cold to the touch. I placed it on the kitchen counter like it might explode. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. An hour later, Jared knocked again. Hey, I forgot my jacket. His voice was louder than usual, forced. His eyes darted around the living room. I handed it to him. He paused, his gaze narrowing. Did you go through my stuff? I shook my head. No. He stared at me for a beat, then grabbed the jacket and left without another word. Leo barked again as his car pulled away. I didn't try to quiet him. It was nearly midnight when I poured myself a glass of water and sat down at the kitchen table. Leo lay under my feet, restless, his eyes tracking every creak of the floor. I opened the laptop more out of habit than intention and clicked into the backyard security feed. I hadn't planned to watch it. But something in Jared's voice from earlier, the sharpness, the shift when he asked about the jacket, kept playing in my head. The footage began with him stepping out onto the back porch during his visit. I remembered that moment. He said he needed to take a call. I had been in the kitchen pretending not to listen. Now the sound came through clearly. Shipments delayed. No, I'm not using the garage again. I told you neighbors are nosy. My stomach turned. I paused, rewound, played it again. Tuesday's fine. Just make sure it's cleared. And don't bring that guy here again. She has cameras. My hands hovered above the trackpad. Leo barked in the background of the clip, loud, insistent warning. I hadn't noticed it at the time. I heard it now like an alarm I'd ignored. I watched the footage 3 times. Each time the barking felt louder. I opened the video editor and trimmed the section, saved it to a folder, then copied it onto the USB I kept in the drawer, the one I usually used for recipes and family photos. Then I called Detective Hall. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was calm, professional, but I heard the shift when I told her what I had. I emailed the clip while we were still on the line. After a few minutes of silence, she spoke. "You've just given us probable cause, Ms. Moran. This is enough to move forward." I thanked her, though I don't remember my voice making any sound. Leo had fallen asleep beside my chair, but I sat awake until the sky began to lighten behind the curtains. Detective Hall arrived just after lunch with another officer and a golden retriever named Chip. She wore plain clothes again, but her expression was all business. "We're doing a passive sweep," she explained gently. "Officially, it's a training exercise for Chip. Off the books for now. Just a way to see if anything turns up." I nodded and unlocked the doors. Leo followed me from room to room, silent but alert, as if he understood exactly what was happening. Chip moved methodically, nose to floor tail steady. Hall stayed back, letting him lead. They worked through the kitchen, the living room, the hallway, and finally the basement, where Jared used to keep his old gym equipment. That's where Chip stopped. A worn, half-zipped duffel sat under the stairs. Jared had left it months ago. I'd asked him to pick it up 3 times. He always forgot. Chip sat down in front of it. Perfect posture. No barking, no scratching. Just a silent, practiced signal. Leo behind me let out a growl that rumbled low in his chest. Hall crouched beside the bag, opened it carefully. No active substances, just the faint, unmistakable scent of something once hidden. The lining was stained as if something had leaked. She looked up. If Leo had professional scent training, this is the kind of reaction we'd expect. To narcotics, I asked, even though I already knew. Exactly the way he behaved around your son. She stood, nodded to her partner, and they packed up quietly. The whole thing took under 20 minutes. After they left, I made tea. I didn't drink and sat at the kitchen table with Leo's head resting on my lap. I scratched behind his ears with one hand and reached for a notepad with the other. I wrote down every visit Jared had made since Leo came home. Every odd phrase. Every joke that didn't feel like a joke. I wasn't building a case. Not really. I just needed the truth lined up in ink because it wouldn't stop echoing in my head. Later that evening, I took out the trash and Leo growled at the bin. I was tying up the trash bag when Leo let out that low growl again. Not loud, not frantic, just focused. He stood still, his eyes fixed on the bin, his body stiff. I paused. The kitchen was quiet. No one had visited, no deliveries had come. Just a bag of coffee grounds, eggshells, and 2 days' worth of junk mail. I sighed and lifted the lid. That's when I saw it. Tucked beneath a crumpled paper towel was a small square wrapper. Silver neatly folded its corners crisp, like it had been handled carefully. I pulled it out slowly using a napkin. It wasn't foil from gum or candy. It was thicker. Sealed edges. No label, no markings. Just clean, smooth plastic with a faint crease down the middle. I held it for a moment in my gloved hand, then walked it straight to the Ziploc bag in the drawer. Leo didn't take his eyes off me the entire time. I called Hall. She arrived within the hour, calm and composed as always. I handed her the bag, and she inspected it through the plastic. "This is the type of packaging used for small batch synthetics," she said. "Usually opioids, sometimes designer blends. No residue, but packaging patterns matter. Even trash tells a story." She labeled it and slipped it into an evidence envelope. "Did you see who might have left it?" I shook my head. Jared hadn't been in the kitchen, not that I remembered. But his jacket had brushed the counter, and he'd stepped over Leo's bowl like it wasn't even there. No one else has been in the house, I said. Hall nodded once. You're doing the right thing. You're not alone in this. After she left, I sat at the table with the lights off. Leo settled under the window, finally calm. I stared at the counter at the empty space where the wrapper had been. The jacket, the call, the gym bag. Now the trash. Signs without substance. And still my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The call came just after noon. I had been in the backyard pulling weeds that didn't matter when the phone rang with a number I now recognized without needing to save. Ms. Moran Hall, said her voice steady. We've taken Jared into custody. I didn't speak at first, she continued. It happened during a routine stop outside Harrisburg. No sirens, no drama. They flagged him for a broken taillight and saw something under the back seat. When they checked the trunk, they found several sealed packets. Same size, same packaging style as the one from your house. I leaned against the porch railing. My hand was still wrapped around a trowel. He didn't resist, she added. Looked surprised more than anything. Quiet. I thanked her. Just that. One word low and even. After I hung up, I stood in the yard until the sun moved behind the trees. My knees ached and I hadn't even finished the planter bed. I walked inside, washed my hands, and stared at my phone on the counter. His name was still there. Jared Mobile, with that photo he never changed from some party years ago. His arm around someone I never met. I hovered over it for a long time, then hit delete. Not out of anger, just to stop myself from reaching for it in weak moments. Leo followed me to the living room and curled beside the couch. I sat down, and he rested his head on my lap. For the first time in weeks, he didn't growl, didn't bark, didn't pace. He exhaled once a long, steady breath, then went still. The silence in the house felt different now. Not hollow, but suspended, like something had left the room and wasn't coming back. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just let my hand rest on Leo's head and stared at the front door. The locksmith came on a Wednesday. It wasn't fear that made me call him. It was the need to mark a line. Something final. He changed the locks on the front, back, and garage doors. I handed him the spare from the drawer and watched him drop it into his bucket of discarded brass. I thanked him, paid in cash, and stood at the door long after his truck pulled away. That weekend, the letter came. A plain white envelope, no return address. Postmarked from the county jail. Inside, Jared's handwriting looked exactly the same. Sharp, slanted, a little rushed like he always wrote under pressure. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I thought I had it under control. You probably hate me now. Maybe you should, but I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant. The sentence trailed off. No signature. I folded the letter in half and slid it into the back of the drawer beneath the phone book. I didn't throw it away. Not yet. Leo sat by the door watching me. Calm. The next morning, I took him to the vet. Routine checkup, nothing urgent. He passed every test. Healthy, alert, balanced. He's doing well. The receptionist smiled as we checked out. I nodded, hand resting on Leo's head. He's more than a dog, I said quietly. He's the one who saved me. On the way home, I picked up a small shelf from the hardware store. That afternoon, I took down Jared's spare house key, logged out of the shared email he once used from my laptop, and moved Leo's old training collar onto the new shelf. I set it there like a medal. The house felt heavier without the waiting. No more listening for footsteps on the porch or tires on the gravel. Leo curled up by the window and closed his eyes. That night, I sat in the quiet and finally let the porch light stay off. Twice a month now, I drive to the Methodist Center near the park and sit in a circle of folding chairs under soft lights. The group meets on Wednesdays, families of those arrested for drug-related offenses. I don't talk much. Sometimes I nod. Sometimes I just listen. There's comfort in the way strangers speak about things you've only ever whispered to yourself. Shame bends a little when it's not just yours to carry. In between meetings, I started volunteering at the shelter where I first met Leo. I clean kennels, help walk the new arrivals, organize the donation bins. The dogs don't need explanations, they only ask that you show up with a steady hand. I like that kind of honesty. At night, I read again. Not the mystery novels I used to devour, those feel too sharp now. I reach for softer stories, ones that take their time. Leo lies at my feet, warm and quiet, his breathing a steady rhythm in the hush of the room. He doesn't bark anymore. Not like he used to. The house is calm. Still, I've come to understand that silence isn't emptiness. It's a kind of healing. A place where the noise has been replaced with space. Jared is serving his time. I haven't visited. The jail is 2 counties over. I wrote him once just to see what the words would look like on paper. I didn't send it. The letters folded in my desk drawer beside the one he sent me, both unfinished. Maybe that's the point. Sometimes late in the evening, I reach down and brush my fingers across Leo's head. He looks up, eyes steady, tail thumping once. "You knew all along, didn't you?" I whisper. He doesn't answer. Of course not. But something in his eyes settles me. I close my book and switch off the lamp. As the dark settles around us, Leo stays curled by my feet, a quiet sentry. Not protecting me from danger now, but from forgetting who I am.